we're Darren and Stephanie. Welcome to our channel. If you've checked out our channel before, we typically talk about all things travel, but since we are in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, we thought we'd change things up a little bit.
Now, I don't know where you are right now, but here in Indiana and across most of the United States, people are pretty much stuck inside their homes. You can go out to go grocery shopping for essential items, but if you're like us, some items are pretty hard to find. Now, one of those items is bread. For some reason, all the bread is gone at multiple stores that we've checked.
One of our favorite things about travel, especially in Europe, which is where most of our travels overseas have taken place, is the ease at which you can find good, fresh, crusty bread. It just isn't a thing, at least in our part of the US, to find that type of bread. Usually it's bagged sandwich bread is the most common here. And so we set out a few years ago to find a really reliable, quick and easy way and recipe for us to make our own bread at home.
So the next time that you're at Walmart or Meijer or whatever grocery store is in your area and you can't find any bagged bread, you can create your own loaf of bread that looks like this. It is crusty on the outside, soft on the inside, and goes great with anything.
And once you make that original dough that we'll show you how to make here shortly, it literally does take about 5 minutes of prep time every day. Now, of course, that doesn't include the baking time and the resting time, but as far as work by you, 5 minutes is pretty accurate.
And when we say that this bread recipe is easy, it is a no-knead recipe. So it is easy enough for you to do with kids. And another thing about this recipe is that it's only 4 ingredients, and maybe these 4 ingredients won't be sold out at the store right now.
Yeah, you can probably even have them in your cabinet now.
All right, guys, so this bread recipe is super simple. We discovered it in a book called Artisan Bread in 5 minutes a day. There are 4 basic ingredients. You can kind of see the collection of things you need here. There is first all-purpose flour, dry active yeast, lukewarm water, which we don't quite have yet, and kosher salt. For bread making, we like diamond crystal kosher salt. We typically make a French-style boule out of this recipe, and so that's what we'll be showing you today. So for measuring your ingredients, you can use measuring cups and measuring bowls. We like to use a kitchen scale, like this one that we got from Coffee Gator that we measure coffee with. I can put a link in the description or up above so you can find it if you're interested in something similar. As far as water goes, we're gonna start there. You want it to be lukewarm, but no warmer than 100 degrees. Having warmer water will help activate the yeast, but too warm will actually kill the yeast and your dough won't rise. And so we're going to start by taking our mixing bowl here and zeroing out our scale. And then the lukewarm water, you want about 3 cups or 680 grams. And so we're going to measure until we hit that amount. We're a little bit over, but 10 grams won't make that much difference here. So to the lukewarm water, we're going to add our yeast and our salt and mix in. This may not be a traditional approach to adding them both at the same time, but we found that with this recipe, it doesn't make much difference. And so we will re-zero our scale. And for salt, we're looking for 17 to 25 grams, which is about 1 to 1.5 tablespoons, depending on your type of salt. Diamond crystal kosher salt tends to be a little less salty, so we'll lean closer to that 25 grams. For the yeast, we're looking for a similar amount, about 10 grams or about a tablespoon. So zero your scale again and measure your yeast. And from there, we're just gonna whisk this together until it's mostly dissolved. And so for flour, you need about 6.5 cups or 910 grams. Sounds like a lot, but you'll actually find out that it's not a super stiff dough when it's finished. So we're gonna pour that in now. So at this point, all that's left to do is to mix our dough with a wooden spoon just until it's evenly incorporated. You will find toward the end of the mixing that it does start to get a little bit stiff, but like I said, it still ends up being a little bit wetter dough than normal bread dough. So we're finished mixing here. You can see the consistency. It's pretty sticky. If it's right, it will stick to your fingers, but this is what we're looking for, just everything incorporated evenly, and now we're ready to let this rest and rise. So in about 2 hours, we'll come back and check out what it looks like. It should be about double in size. Usually if I hit it just right, it'll actually raise the lid up off of the bowl. And so we'll see how we did this time. All right, so it is about 2.5 hours later or so, and we're gonna check out our dough here and see if it has doubled in size as we expected it to. So let's take a look. Ta-da! So it does look like it's risen quite a bit, and you can see it's pretty wobbly now with the yeast doing its yeasty things. And so technically speaking, this dough is ready to use now. It's actually best probably if you refrigerate it overnight. It just kind of solidifies the dough a little bit, makes it a little bit easier to work with instead of being so sticky. But for the sake of this video, we are going to go ahead and shape some dough right now. And since this is going to be pretty sticky, I'm going to dust the top of the dough pretty liberally here, and you'll want to do the same if you use it out of the fridge. It just helps you work with it a little bit. And so I'm going to aim to pull off a 16-ounce ball here and just kind of trim it to what I think is going to be about right. You can see it's still pretty delicate since it's warm. So we'll start there, and I know that won't be quite enough. At this point with the rest of the dough, you can put the lid on. I would probably leave it on loosely the first night, but for now, we're gonna work with our dough, and we're gonna wanna dust it a little bit on top here again. And what I have here is a pizza peel with some parchment paper. Now you could use it straight on the peel with some cornmeal or some flour to keep it from sticking. I like to use the parchment paper, it's easy to work with. And so you bake it on that for about the first half of the baking, and then you pull the paper out. So we're gonna shape our dough, and we'll see how sticky it is here since it's pretty fresh. What you wanna do is, you want to take it in your hands like so, kind of with your fingers tucked underneath, and you can kind of see it's already started to form a ball. And we'll continue to tuck with our left hand and give quarter turns of the dough until it starts to smooth out on top and you get a nice cloak. So this process should take about 30 to 45 seconds, maybe a minute at most, and you just keep turning it until it smooths out. And if it does get too sticky, add a little bit more flour. So once you've got your ball nice and smooth, you want to transfer it over to the parchment paper and let it rest for about 30 minutes. While you're resting your dough, you want to preheat your oven to 450 degrees and put a pizza stone in there and some other sort of metal pan, a cake pan or a roaster pan, one oven rack below. Alright, so our dough has rested for about 30-40 minutes here, so we are ready to put it in the oven. So part of this is just for design and for the sake of making it look good when it comes out of the oven, and the other part is to let steam escape and not crack in random places. So for the design part, we're first going to take just a little all-purpose flour, and we're going to just kind of sprinkle it over and dust the dough. We're going to take a very sharp, I use a chef's knife, and we're going to kind of not pinch it, but hold it in place with 2 fingers and just run that knife across to score it 3 times. And what this does is create vents for the steam to escape, but it also keeps that flour in place. And so when it bakes and puffs up, you'll get a nice design where the flour is and now where the cuts are without flour. Since we use parchment paper, this is gonna slide in very easily. And so, in that 450 oven that's preheated, we will slide our dough on, like so. And then you'll notice that roasting pan that we mentioned. We just want to take about a cup of water and pour it in that roasting pan. Be careful because it's of course hot. And that's going to create some steam that'll help brown the bread and allow it to rise. And so that bread's going to stay in with the parchment paper for 20 minutes. And at 20 minutes, we're going to pull the parchment paper out and bake it for an additional 15 to 20 minutes until it's nice and dark brown. You'll even see some dark, almost burnt edges around those cuts that we made. Hot. So I would say let it cool at least 10 to 15 minutes before slicing into it if you can't wait for it to cool completely. One other tip is you'll know you had a pretty good bake if you can actually hear the bread start to crackle as it cools. And this, I don't know if you can hear it, Steph, with the microphone, but it is starting to crackle. I'll get it right up close to the microphone.
Oh yeah.
So now we'll just put this on a cooling rack, give it a while to cool, and we will slice into it.
So if you're able to find this right now, this is Kerrygold Pure Irish Butter. Now the crazy thing is when we were in Ireland a few years ago, I was in love with this butter and I had no idea why it was better than butter back home. It actually has a higher fat content, so it is like the ice cream of butter and it goes perfectly along with this bread. So if you're able to find it right now, it may be one of the only butters that's left. When we were at the grocery store yesterday, it was actually one of the few butters that was left. This will make for a special treat.
So we actually made 2 loaves of bread today. This one here is pretty cool, so we're gonna slice into it, give you a shot of what it looks like on the inside. I think you'll be impressed. This is definitely not a quick bread. This is closer to a full knead bread that you would find in a bakery. So let's cut in and see what we've got. Looks lovely.
So that's it. It is pretty easy, and now you can say that you know how to make homemade artisan bread without any expensive or complicated equipment.
So we hope you all are staying safe in this strange time in our world's history, and we hope a recipe like this one may make that time a little bit easier for you. Again, you can find the recipe on our website at landlockedlovebirds.com. We'll also drop it in the description down below and maybe pop a link up above as well, just to make it easy for you.
And if you enjoyed this cooking video, please give the video a like and maybe comment down below what you're cooking while you're staying home and staying safe. And if you like our channel, please click subscribe.
We'll see you in the next video. Thanks.